Hello everyone, my name is Nakoba and welcome back to Satisfactory. Today we're going to be taking a look at a motor factory, but before we do that we need to expand our coal production. Now I've been racking my brain on how to come up with and build and film a nice coal power plant, and it's actually led to some burnout issues. I've come up with a number of designs and they just don't quite work, they don't quite fit, and I don't feel like they're good enough to put into a video. So I'm just going to put that project on the back burner for a little bit. We'll come back to designing a nice coal power plant at a later time, but right now I just want to get something built so we have enough power and we can move on to motors. So we're going to build a coal power expansion in the form of a time lapse, and then we'll jump into our motor production. Let's get into it. All right, and that is a coal power plant expansion all complete. We've just mirrored the power plants we had in place over onto the other side. You can see that, and then we still have the other half of this lake if we need to expand further. I had a vision in mind for a big, elaborate, platform here with curved foundations and spirals and circles, but every time I tried to put it together, it wasn't quite right. I couldn't quite get the look of it, and I tear it all down and get frustrated, and eventually you know, in order to avoid progress, we just have to accept good enough. So this is a little rough around the edges. We may come back through and clean it up later, but it is providing the power we need right now. And so we can move on to some more interesting tasks. All right, the game crashed. I had to, unfortunately, take my inventory back from my builder. I've not seen this before. This is a neat mechanic. Oh, neat. Very cool. Well, that's good to know. All right, let's head on home and take a look at our next task. Actually, I think we can do this up here because we have gotten a ton of comments on my last video. I set up a, in the last episode, we set up a little sort of mini factory that would process animal remains into DNA, and people told me that under the alien technology tree, the power amplifier research is critically important, and that would make that build much, much more efficient. So let's go ahead and see, do we have anything else that we need up here? Ah, there we go. Knew I'd had more inventory. All right. Let's see, do we have everything we need for this? No, we do not have our SAM fluctuators. We do not have circuit boards. Now, the circuit boards are going to be back home. The SAM fluctuators we probably need to craft up, but we can go ahead and grab a few stacks of the refined SAM, reanimated SAM, so that we can make those very easily while we're up here. And then we'll head on back down to our base in order to take a look at that recipe. Now, while we drift on back over our base, I do want to talk a little bit about the idea of burnout in Satisfactory, and I think it's the same in any sort of large open world game like that. When you first enter into the world, you know, you're the pioneer. There's nothing here. Your job is to tame this alien landscape, and the responsibility to do everything is on you. So there's a lot to do, and progress is really fast in the early stages of the game, and it's a lot of fun. But as you get further and further in the game, each job becomes more daunting, more challenging. You know, each build gets bigger and takes longer, and has a lesser effect on the world. You know, when we plop down our first foundations, that's 100% of the changes to the world. And now if we were to build a foundation, it wouldn't even be a tenth of 1%. I think I got the milestone for 5,000 foundations recently, or the Steam achievement. So I think that as you go through the game, that's something you have to contend with. And I think the biggest thing I've found in terms of combating that is, like we did with the power plant, not letting progress be the enemy of perfect. You know, I could have spent another month trying to come up with a good power plant design, but ultimately I wanted to move on and do more interesting things. And so I just put something together and it will work, and that gets me going on. And now that's there for me to refine, to tweak, to decorate, to change, and to manipulate in whatever way I want, to rebuild if I choose to. All right, so I think we need, how many of the 100 SAM fluctuators? All right, that's going to take a little bit to craft, so we'll get those going. That's the single biggest thing that I've found is, you know, working with something new, even if it's not necessarily as grand as we'd planned or as big as we planned, exactly what we wanted, just keeping that progress going regardless of what the pace can be. The other thing I found that really motivates me is actually this, making a video to share my world. This is something I read years and years ago when I was playing a lot of Minecraft prior and during COVID, was that no Minecraft build is complete until someone else has seen it. And I think that holds true and functions as a really strong motivator in any game that has a sort of community around it. You know, Satisfactory has one of the best communities of any game that I've ever played. It's truly a fantastic group of players, and you can go on Reddit, you can go on any of the Discords or anywhere else and just share your creations, and you might get some good feedback, you might get some good criticisms, but it'll always be well intended, and that's always clear. You never feel like you're being attacked like with some other games. And so that is something that I think is very, very valuable and really special about this game, and also acts as a good way to combat burnout. All right, let's go ahead and get this unlocked. Now, we don't have very many summer sleep weeds, just haven't come across many of them.
Production amplifier unlocked. Every single manufacturing and smelting building will be backwards compatible with this new technology. These buildings can now have a Somersloop embedded to increase resource output without requiring more input, at the cost of greatly increased power consumption.
Flow cycles within flow cycles make explosions into temples into explosions into temples. The spin sphere of woven windows. Each tiny body contains tinier bodies until the line layers fold into curves which folds into threads which weave the tapestry. A song of light and leaf and flower, a dance of matter clouds and...
I think they're trying to explain energy to matter conversion theory, but you do not need to understand it to do your job. I'll just mute them for you so you can continue your mission. I, however, will be taking notes. This is fascinating material.
Oh, Ada, never change. I love that. All right, so I want to see how this works, but I want to do it efficiently. So we're going to turn off this machine now. We've set that one on standby. We happen to have a few pieces of spitter remains. So which of these buildings was for spitter remains? This first one here. So we'll drop that guy in there. We will create the output multiplier there. We'll drop those in. So it says it requires greatly increased power consumption. Okay, so it's 4 times power consumption. That is greatly increased, but it is doubling the amount of materials we're getting. And we only have one Somersloop, so we have to be clever about this. But what we can then do, drop this in here. There was only one in that front one. Turn this on. It looks like the first production does not pick up the item in question. That's okay. And we should be able to overclock this as well to make it just go really fast. Get through the rest of our proteins quickly. But that is 16, well, 13 alien proteins out of 4 spitter remains. And that darn nuance of the Somersloop that it doesn't work on the first item. Something to make a note of, but that's really exciting. So now Somersloops have once again, or have been elevated to a high priority, and that is something we will have to get. I have seen a couple of items up on the cliffs and up on these various spires, so that may be something we want to take a look at very soon. But for now, let's head on down to our depot that we built in our last factory and gather up some of the explosives that we had set up, and then take a look at a design for our next factory. All right, over here at our depot, it is time for us to start planning our next factory, which is going to be motors. And the good news is, if we drop down another MAM over here, you can see I've been doing some math here. If we drop down a MAM over here, and take a look at our alternate recipe hard drive library. Actually, do we have any more hard drives? We have a recipe that I have been sitting on, and that is the steel rotor recipe. That allows rotors and stators to use the same ingredients. They both use steel pipes and wire. And that makes motor production dead simple because it means you only need those 2 basic components. This is further simplified by a couple of other alternate recipes we already have, and that's steel pipe and iron wire, which makes motors out of pure iron and in a very, very simple factory. So let's go ahead and jump into a time lapse and get this thing built, and then we'll go through it, talk about the numbers, and see how it all works out. Let's get into it. All right, and that is a motor factory all complete. Now, my game crashed right as I was finishing filming building this thing, so I did have to rebuild it, and I think I got it pretty much the same. But if anything's in a different place, that's the discrepancy. There is that I literally clicked, stop recording on my recording, and then clicked back into Satisfactory. My graphics card driver crashed, and the game closed without saving about 3/4 of the build, so I had to rebuild it again. But fortunately, it's a very simple design, and I really like it. This is a pure iron motor factory, and I'm very, very pleased with it. We're bringing in some iron ore from over here, and this is actually something I wanted to clean up as well. So let's go ahead and grab our smart splitter here and line this up a little bit better. So we'll go ahead and take care of that. Do this thing right there, and Mark III belt going over there, and then the center should be overflow, and the left should be iron ore. There we go. And there we go. So that should prioritize any additional iron ore coming in to go to the left there, and that may actually be, we may want to replace this beam with another storage container just because of just to smooth things out. If we end up with more iron ore than we can use, we don't want to backlog and sink the excess and then hit a drought before the next load arrives. So having the storage container there as a buffer will prevent that. And then, of course, we're drawing just a very small amount of iron ore over here, 8 per minute for our Novelisk production. So that means that we are using a grand total of 230 of the 240 iron ore that we're bringing in, which, hello, lizard doggo. I don't have any pale berries. That's a bummer. Lizard doggo is stuck in my workbench there, and we can't feed him. We're using 230 of the 240 because this plant up here uses 222.222 repeating iron ore, and then the 8 over here as well. Let's go through the design a little bit. You can see I've done a raised platform on stilts here. I wanted to preserve this thoroughfare here for additional vehicle lines, or possibly for a train line if we decide to run a train line from elsewhere on the map through here and have the opportunity of it running along the ground. I really like the way trains look when they're on the ground, and vehicles as well, rather than using roads. I think it's matches sort of the pioneer aesthetic and really promotes the idea of taming the alien landscape. So that is something that I wanted to do there. Now over here, we have 2 separate production lines, but they're the same up until we get to our assemblers at the end, and that is that we have some constructors producing wire out of iron wire. We have our smelters producing iron ingots, of course, out of our raw iron ore. And these ones, I think I need to adjust the tuning on one of these smelters. So let's do some math real quick. I did have to change the clock speeds on some of these machines in order to get the production levels that we wanted right, and there's still a couple more tweaks we need to make as well. So we are sending in our iron ore here into a bank of smelters. We have 4 smelters on this side. One of those is producing 20 iron wire a minute. That's using 11.111 iron ingots per minute. Our next one is also producing iron wire, but that is overclocked to produce 28 per minute. So that gives us our 48 per minute total, and that's using 15.556. So that's 26.666 repeating iron ingots here. Our final constructor on the side is producing iron pipe or steel pipe out of the iron pipe alternate recipe, and that's using 64. So if we add the 26.666 repeating to that, that gives us 90.666 repeating ingots per minute. So we need one of these to drop down to 0.666 repeating items per minute. So 2.22% clock speed. That's barely going to draw any power at all. But then we have 3 more that are running at normal speed, 30, 30, and 30. And probably the best thing would be to distribute that across all 3 of them in order to save some power. But the effect in terms of materials usage and output rate should be the same. It's just a question of, do we save 1 megawatt or 2 megawatts of power by dividing that up. But that's something we can do a little later. For now, we are sending our iron wire and iron pipes into this constructor, which is producing 8 per minute. So we did have to overclock that. I used a couple of my power shards. So you can see we're down from, I think, 50 down to 44 power shards here. But we are using exactly 16 steel pipes and 48 iron wire per minute to produce 8 rotors. Over on the other side, we have the same production lines. Our clock speeds are a little different. So we have 22 wire being produced here. That's 12.222 ingots per minute. This is another... okay, so there's the other 22. So that's 24.444. And this one is 20, which is 11.111. So that is the 24.444 plus 11.111 is 35.555 iron ingots per minute. And then over here we are using 96, so 96 plus 35 is going to be 131.555 iron ingots per minute total that we need to produce, but we are producing precisely the correct amount of pipes and wire that we need to produce 8 stators per minute. And again, this one is overclocked to reach that number. So 135.555, let's double check our clock speeds here. So we need, if these are at 30, 30, and 30, that gives us 90. And so this one put us at 120, and we need an extra 15, 45.555. We need another power shard in there. 0.555. That should give us 135.555 units of iron per minute. So that should be perfectly tuned. And we will have some backlogging on the belt after these fill, which they more or less already have. But that's okay, because we can, again, repurpose that input line to draw out the extra iron. And one of the other things that I want to do is prioritize getting an upgrade here, because we're starting to hit the limit of what we can do with 270 units a minute on the belt line, especially when we're merging belt lines like we are with our truck station. So I really want to push into the next phase and unlock tier 4. Now, the 8 stators and 8 rotors that we're producing in those 2 assemblers are coming to the central assembler, where they are producing 4 motors per minute, and then we're overclocking that with our summer sloop. Now, we only had 1 summer sloop left, so I just chose to put that in there, where it's producing 6 per minute, and that is then being fed into a storage container with a dimensional depot on top of it. And if we look at our dimensional depot, we are up to 73 motors already, 74 motors already. So this has been running just fine for a little over 10 minutes, and it is humming along. Everything is 100% efficient here. We might be able to squeeze just a little bit more power by balancing the smelters just a little bit better, but overall, this should create a level power graph, which I can't actually show you because we're using sort of a global power graph. If we look at this, it's all over the place because of all of our different machines. What I would like to do, though, is have at each factory a location. So right now, the input power on this one is coming in down here. So what I want to do is set up a sort of power control, or a power panel, control panel, right here that would allow me to turn this factory off if I wanted to. I can't conceive of a reason why I would want to, but it would separate the grid for this factory from the rest of our grid, so we would be able to observe the efficiency a little more directly, make sure that we're doing everything just right. And so that is a motor factory up and running, all complete. I have not yet decorated this, but I want to get another set of production lines up and running. And these ones are going to be temporary. We're not going to be building a full factory for these, but it has to do with the space elevator and unlocking the next phase. See, we've got all the smart plating we need. We left that production line in place before. And the other 2 components that we need are actually pretty simple. And things that we have all the materials already being stockpiled for. The modular frames and steel beams, we could go gather up those items and simply plop down an assembler or 2 to turn them into the 1,000 versatile frameworks that we need, and just get that process going. That's what I would like to do next. And then similarly for the automated wiring, that's even faster because that just requires cable and stators, and that might be something we want to do a dedicated factory for out of a little bit of spare iron, and we don't have enough at this location, but we can set something up for that very simply and very easily. So let's go ahead and pop on back to base and see what we can do to accommodate that. All right, back here at base, the sun has come up, and it is time for us to look at setting up these production lines. But in order to do that, I want to go into the hub and unlock blueprints. Now, blueprints are an interesting one. Looks like we need a little bit more cable and a little bit more steel beams. Let's go ahead and pluck out some steel beams as well as some more cabling. There we go. Oh, and we need some more modular frames as well. Now, I like blueprints a lot, and I'm very excited to make use of them. And one of the reasons I want to make blueprints for these...
Milestone reached. Blueprints reduce repetitive building tasks, further optimizing your progression towards saving Earth, with its beautiful ecosystems, abundant natural resources, and sunsets over frolicking puppies and kittens. The Blueprint Designer allows you to build and combine structures once and then duplicate that configuration effortlessly. Any complaints about the spatial restrictions will only reveal your own inefficiencies.
All right. So with the space elevator components, I know we are going to need them, significant numbers of them for future milestones as well. So I want to go ahead and set up blueprints that will allow us to expand these production lines much more easily in the future. Now, in order to accomplish that... Okay, that one gone? All right, perfect. Beautiful. Now, I have chosen this site as a place for our blueprint laboratory because I like the idea of continuing to expand around our base, and I like this sort of elevated pillar, elevated platform up here as a place where we can set up a platform on which we will build our blueprint designer. This out way. We can go and why not? Work on up here and that out as well. This may require some rebuilding in the future. Don't love this sticking out over that wall so much. Go ahead. See if we can bring this in a little bit. Fine. There. Okay, fine. That will work just fine. Here. Support this place. And it's okay. Beautiful. Now, can we put a blueprint designer on this platform? Is it large enough? Could be. Lapping on that
Once you have built a satisfactory blueprint, interact with the Blueprint Designer terminal to save it. It will then be available in the Blueprints tab of your build menu. Blueprints can always be edited to correct mistakes or optimize. If you find yourself struggling to work within the set size restrictions, remember that this is a you problem, and efficiency can always be improved.
Nudging just to get that perfectly upright where we want it. All right, I have come up with a blueprint that I am pretty happy with. It's got some weird tuning on some of the numbers, but ultimately what it does is it takes in iron ore, 30 iron ore a minute, and produces the automated wiring for us right out of this machine. 0.776 automated wiring per minute, and that is, everything is perfectly tuned, perfectly efficient. So what we're doing is we're bringing in the 30 iron, we're smelting that into ingots, and then we're sending that into some constructors. 2 constructors are producing iron wire, and 1 is producing iron pipe. or rather wire and steel pipe out of the iron alternates. The wire is being split. Most of it is going to be most of it is going through this constructor to be turned into cable. The rest is heading upstairs, and the wire and pipe upstairs are being sent into a assembler right over here. Nope. Let's try that again. All right, the wire and pipe are being sent into an assembler over here to be turned into stators, and the stators are then being sent into the stators are then being merged with the cable from downstairs to produce the automated wiring. Now, I chose this design because it uses exactly 30 iron ore a minute, so we can tap a normal iron vein and set up 2 of these. Just drop down 2 blueprints side by side, and they will work beautifully. And it's a fairly affordable blueprint as well. It's not very expensive. You can see it takes 165 concrete, about a stack of iron plates, 23 wire, 29 rods, and 91 cable, 8 rotors, and 28 reinforced iron plates. All very, very manageable numbers. So very easy and affordable to plop down and tile however many of these we want. So we'll go look for a spare iron vein, and if it's a pure iron vein, we'll set up 4. If it's a normal iron vein, we'll set up 2, and just start production on our automated wiring. I think that now I believe there's some more iron over near the docking station to the west, so let's head that way and get this thing set up. All right, with our blueprint all squared away, let's go ahead and set up a foundation over here. Ah, there it is, our first automated wiring. The blueprint works. It is a success. Everything is going to plan. Very, very slowly, but it's going to plan. And once again, we are using manifolds, so this is going to take a little bit to backlog. But once it does so, we will be getting 1.5 of those automated wiring a minute, which means it should only take us about 60 minutes to complete that portion of phase 2. We've got our second one coming in over there. And production for stators on both of our third and fourth is already underway on both sides. I'm going to call this one a win. We will end up, before you know it, with a massive storage container full of these. And if we decide we want more, we can go ahead and upgrade this miner to Mark II and tack on a couple more. If we run out of room, we can build up or build out or build back or whatever we want. That's the beauty of these blueprints. Plenty more iron in the area if we want to expand as well. Take care of the local wildlife, though. But that is a mission accomplished. I love it. All right, with our automated wiring under production, I think what we're going to do for our versatile framework, instead of setting up another blueprint and setting up another factory, because it requires steel production, what we're going to do is just going to set up some temporary production lines that will quickly produce the items we need. So for this, we are going to place down some foundations, zoom them out a little ways. I think a 4x2 ought to do it. Let's do 4x3. We'll set up 2 of them. And then what we can do is set up a couple of assemblers. Just like... And over here, we can set up our storage containers for these. We're going to need a bit more space. Storage containers. Those don't even let you line them up nicely. That's interesting. All right. Oh, we'll at least make it symmetrical if we can't make it straight. All right. Go. Power setup. Power. And both of these will be making our versatile frameworks. Oh, versatile frameworks. Just like on our other one, we will have them flow into a dimensional depot. Now this one we don't need to set up anything more advanced than a simple dimensional depot. Alright, and that should be all the versatile frameworks sorted as well, because I believe we have definitely put in enough items to produce the 1,000 we need. So this obviously will need to be advanced at some stage, but for now this should be plenty for us. This will produce 10 a minute, so that will take about 100 minutes, which is a little under 2 hours. But that's okay, because now that we have unlocked the use for summer sleeps and used a couple more of our Mercer spheres, it is time for us to go exploring again. So I think that's where we're going to leave this episode for today, and I'm going to go exploring to the south between episodes. I think I'm going to hit up the grassy plains, find all the spare hard drives there, take a look around for the Mercer spheres, summer sleeps, and then make a note of any other interesting changes to the map or anything else that will be useful. So I would like to thank you guys for taking a few minutes out of your day to spend with me here in the world of Satisfactory. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Leave a like if you have, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. As always, my name is Dakoba, and I hope you have an efficient day. I'll see you soon.